Is LSU finally moving Harold Perkins back outside where he belongs? Brian Kelly might have tipped his hand. It's Locked on LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We are free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. Matt McMahon lands a top 100 prospect, basketball pointing up, but let's face it, y'all, it's football season. We got a lot to talk about. Got an injury update on Chris Hilton. Brian Kelly on the thought process with Zavion Thomas and what he's brought to LSU in the return game. But let's face it, the thing that everybody defensively right now associated with LSU is interested in is Harold Perkins. Harold Perkins, there's no guessing with Harold Perkins. We know this isn't a projection. We know Harold Perkins is a dynamic player. We had an episode earlier this week where I talked about this. Harold Perkins, this isn't some five-star who we're waiting to see it all manifest, the promise of his recruitment. This is a guy who we saw in the SEC take over football games as a freshman. Harold Perkins changed the game against Ole Miss. Harold Perkins changed the game against Arkansas. Harold Perkins, as a freshman, was a spy on Heisman-winning quarterback Bryce Young. We know Harold Perkins has a dynamic skill set on the outside as a pass rusher, and he's really good in coverage as well. One of LSU's highest graded linebackers, LSU's highest rated linebacker in coverage, had an interception against Missouri last year in the first half, which changed the game. I told you when I was charting in fall camp, Harold Perkins had a beautiful play, intercepting a pass, guarding Mason Taylor, pinning him against the sideline. He is an athletic dude who needs to play in space. Well, LSU might be getting to that realization. And honestly, if you hook Brian Kelly or Blake Baker up to a polygraph, they probably spill the beans, understanding that Harold Perkins needs to be playing on the outside, that he's not an off-ball linebacker. But if that's what Harold Perkins wants to do in a portal NIL era, sometimes you have to give the guy an opportunity. And I can certainly understand them giving it the old college try the last 2 years, but what's happened is Harold Perkins has become invisible. This dynamic, freakishly gifted athlete who can change games, you are neutralizing his elite skill set by playing him off the ball. And Brian Kelly might have alluded to that. So on Wednesday was the SEC coaches teleconference. And the question of Brian Kelly wasn't about Harold Perkins, but it was about Whit Weeks. Now, Whit Weeks has been a fan favorite. He was awesome as a freshman a season ago, and when the defense was the worst defense in LSU history, a lot of people kept wondering, why aren't you playing 40 more? Why isn't Whit Weeks on the field more? Well, the same thing has been true this year as well. And when you listen to Brian Kelly and what he had to say on Wednesday on the SEC coaches teleconference, that change might be coming.
He's been our top performer and, has put himself in a position where it's going to be difficult for us to take him off the field at any time. And that's going to prompt us to, make some tough decisions relative to, the linebacker position. So, and that's a good thing because he's forced that because of his play. His consistency, his ability to make plays has given him the opportunity to be on the field, and, he can't be in a platoon situation.
He can't be in a platoon situation. It's a good thing. He's forced that by his play, and it's going to force us to make some tough decisions. What do you think those tough decisions are? It ain't that hard to find out. The tough decisions are you got to go look at your guy that's a projected first-round draft pick who the last 2 years has wanted to make a go of it at off-ball linebacker because that's what NFL scouts tell him. We need to see you play more off the ball. And so he tried to do it last year against Florida State. Didn't go well. They move him to nickel Sam. Blake Baker comes in. He, of course, was the one that we all talked about. Helped take Damone Clark and bring him from a guy who was, feeling his way to becoming an all-conference linebacker and an NFL linebacker. Well, now all of a sudden, Blake Baker comes in. You think, all right, here's his reclamation project. He's going to teach Harold Perkins how to be an off-the-ball linebacker. And through 2 games, Harold Perkins had 8 tackles against USC, but 7 of them were assisted. And let's be just perfectly honest. He just hasn't been an impactful player through 2 games. He's vanishing in the interior of that defense because Harold Perkins is a fast, sudden, agile athlete who needs to be playing in space where he can affect the game, not shedding blocks from 300-pound offensive linemen. I think everyone intuitively knows that, but Brian Kelly is telling you right now that they're going to have to make some tough decisions at linebacker. Look, West Weeks playing or not ain't a tough decision. Whether or not you're going to give reps or take reps from Greg Penn ain't a tough decision. If you had somebody better, you make it. When you're talking about a guy like Harold Perkins, who's a projected first-round pick, that's a tough decision that you may have to make. But Brian Kelly told you point blank they can't platoon him. I want to contrast that with something else. I'm going to bring it home to this game against South Carolina on Saturday. But on Monday, when Brian Kelly was having his press conference on Monday, he was asked about Zy Alexander. And Sage Ryan's kind of been playing all over the place. Boundary corner, nickel, safety, all this stuff. And the question was about Zy Alexander coming back and if that maybe makes you move Sage Ryan back to safety. But listen to how Brian Kelly answered this. Keep it in mind, he just said they can no longer platoon Whit Weeks. He has to be on the field every down defensively. Listen to the contrast when he's talking about defensive back.
Nobody is at a point where they can play 65, 70 snaps. We have to get our players playing at the highest level, but not playing that many snaps. I think Zy can play, 30, 35, but he's going to have to be spelled as well. So, I think you're going to see 4 corners playing. I think you're going to see 4 or 5 safeties playing. So I think we're going to really rely on the depth of those units to make certain that we're playing at the highest level instead of saying, hey, Major Burns, you got to play 65 snaps or 62 snaps. And I think we'll be a better defensive backfield playing in that capacity.
So it's not like he's telling you he wants every defensive back or every defensive player out there 65 snaps. If Zy Alexander can give you 30, that's what he needs to keep fresh bodies and you platoon there. He's telling you Whit Weeks can't come off the field. They need him out there the entire time. I forgot to do this, by the way. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. But the point being, right now with Harold Perkins, you can become a dynamic defense again. If Whit Weeks, Greg Penn, West Weeks are all playing on the inside and Harold Perkins is playing in a more natural role, maybe it's the star position in this Blake Baker defense, maybe it's the hybrid role that we see in that Prowler package. You got to get creative with Harold Perkins, and there's not a better week to do it. If you missed the previous episode, we talked about how the last 2 years, Blake Baker has owned Shane Beamer. Owned. Last year, Missouri forced South Carolina into 50 yards of negative rushing in that game. 2 years ago, 11 TFLs and 4 sacks. Blake Baker knows how to generate pressure, in particular against this South Carolina offense. And by the way, I'm not sure if you noticed, and we've talked about it here, but South Carolina's offense is putrid. They scored 23 points at home against Old Dominion. And by the way, the only 2 touchdowns they scored in that game came off of turnovers when Old Dominion fumbled inside their own 10. So South Carolina recovered the ball in a goal-to-go situation twice, only 2 touchdowns they scored in a 23-19 win. And then if you want to look at last week against against Kentucky, you could look at that 31-6 final score, but that was a 10-6 ball game at half, and South Carolina had 101 yards of offense at the half. Lenora Sellers, their quarterback, he is a see-ball, hit-ball quarterback. When you look at what's happened the last 2 weeks in the 2 games, the first week, Lenora Sellers completed 10 passes on 23 attempts for 114 yards, 10 of 23 for 114. He ran it, he ran it 22 times for 68 yards. Look at what happened against Kentucky. They reduced his carries, just 8 carries for negative 11, threw it 10 of 14. So they reduced his passing total, and they were trying to run Lenora Sellers. And then also Rocket Sanders as well, the former Arkansas running back. Lenora Sellers, the quarterback, is 6'3", 242. He is a big dude that is going to try to run north and south, and they're going to try to run Rocket Sanders as well. They can't throw the ball. So you have to be physical in the pocket. You have to be physical in the box at the line of scrimmage. They're not going to trick you, this South Carolina offense. So if Harold Perkins is a guy that's not physical at the point of attack, then you don't need him standing in the middle of the defense. You need Greg Penn. You need Whit. So it's one of those things where we're going to keep an eye on how they manage that. But Brian Kelly might well have spilled the beans there, that LSU needs to make a change with Harold Perkins. It's going to make them a better defense, but Harold Perkins has to be down with it as well. And if he's a team first guy, which I believe Harold is, he'll be willing to do it because it's going to make him a more dynamic player as well. Okay, from one dynamic player on defense in Harold Perkins to one on offense in Zavion Thomas and special teams as well. We're talking about it. It's Locked on LSU, your team every day. For dinner tonight, had a Factor meal. As a matter of fact, it was a pork chop, some topping on it. I'll let you know, in green beans. It was awesome. I told y'all, I'm not just reading ads here. I mean, I am a Factor customer. I'm a Factor subscriber, and I could not recommend it highly enough. With Factor meals, this is no prep. It's no mess. It's so easy. If you have wellness goals, this is a way to do it. With it tastes great, and it's so convenient. Factor is delivered right to your door. So my delivery day is Monday. On Monday, I get my meals. I have a package, and you can get whatever amount of meals you want. I do intermittent fasting, so I don't get the breakfast. I like to eat lunch and dinner, so I get 10 meals. Over the course, they sometimes have client lunches and different things. So over the course of a 7-day period, 10 meals means that's 5 lunches, 5 dinners for me, and I figure out the rest. But you can figure out what's best for you because they let you mix and match with Factor. But I'm telling you, the meals are delicious. There's 35 different meals to choose from. There's 60 different add-ons. So you have new flavors. It never gets boring. They have different programs as well. If you want Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, Keto. They even have vegan options if that's what you're into. I'm telling you, if you want to give yourself time, like, it's so easy. You pop a Factor meat, you slit the film, you put it in the microwave for 2 minutes, and you're eating a delicious, chef-prepared, never frozen meal. Could not recommend it highly enough. I'm not even reading the talking points. Like, I'm just telling you my experience. So we got a great deal for you. Head to factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50 and use the code lockedoncollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code lockedoncollege50 at factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. Again, factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50. Also, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Look, the NFL season is here, and you've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. We have a little something extra for you right now. Now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you can watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. And if that's not enough, be sure to check out FanDuel's Profit Boost in the app and use it for FanDuel's Double Your Winnings for all of Sunday, September the 15th. That's pre-game money line bets. Profit Boost will be live starting Thursday, November the 12th. View your account page now to learn more about your boost. Just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. Again, FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. From one dynamic player on the defensive side, Harold Perkins, to another on the offensive side or on special teams, and that's Zavion Thomas. Brian Kelly, during his SEC teleconference appearance on Wednesday, was asked about Zavion Thomas and what he's contributed in the return game in special teams with his dynamic return ability. And I want to just put some context around this because I'm going to play this for you, and then we also got a chance to speak to Zavion Thomas, so you hear that. The opening play of the season was LSU receiving, as we well know. And Zavion Thomas took that kickoff against Southern Cal and darn near scored a touchdown. Brian Kelly even said it. If he had picked his foot up just a smidge more, he probably houses it and scores a touchdown on the opening kickoff of the season. If you can stomach it to go back and watch it, go back and watch it. It was dynamic, and he almost broke it. But there's something else that's super impactful about Zavion Thomas, and that's the fact that LSU is actually returning kicks. And Brian Kelly effectively said that on the teleconference Wednesday.
Sometimes it's difficult to put all your best players on all of the 4 running teams. Now you can start to apply certain players to certain teams that have that ability to flip field position, change the game, and certainly Zavion is a guy that can do that in the punt return game. And maybe we didn't have that last year where, we were wanting to secure the football. Now we want to change field position, and you begin to start to look at that team differently in terms of personnel. And now you're seeing, a lot of our starters are on that team. And I think we take that into account now because of a player like him.
It's interesting how candid Brian Kelly can be at times. And I actually think he's a very candid coach, as a matter of fact. But I mean, Brian Kelly told you a year ago, their objective in the punt return game was just fielding the football. Not to return it, just don't lose yards. That's why Gregory Clayton was back there. And that goes on for 2 years. Remember, when LSU played Florida State in the Superdome, Malik Neighbors muffed 2 punts, and he never went back there again. From that point on, it was Greg Clayton, just catch the ball. And then a year ago, if you remember, it was Aaron Anderson. And Aaron Anderson muffed a punt, and then it was never more Gregory Clayton go back there, field the punt, and just make sure we don't lose yardage. And there were times where Gregory Clayton lost yardage because he didn't properly field a punt. It bounced, rolled, and LSU had a negative yardage situation. It happened in a big way against Missouri, which ended up with LSU starting a possession inside its own 10 because Gregory Clayton didn't come up and field a punt. So they were hardly flawless and great at it. But Brian Kelly was playing percentages. You had the best offense in college football a year ago. The objective in special teams wasn't go make a dynamic play. The objective in special teams was to say, hey, just don't lose us the football, because whether we start at the 25 or the 35, we're pretty sure our offense is going to go down the field and score. Just don't screw it up for us. And so by and large, that was the answer. On kickoffs, it was take a knee. On punts, it was just field it, fair catch it, and make sure you retain possession. For some context here, a year ago in 2023, LSU, the LSU Fighting Tigers, the team that has had some of the most dynamic return men you can imagine, from Tyrann Mathieu and Odell Beckham all the way back to Eddie Kennison, Kevin Falk, and Skylar Green, and Buster Davis, and Dante Jackson. I mean, you know the list. Derek Stingley, Patrick Peterson, you know the list. LSU in the entire 2023 season, 13 games, had 7 punt returns. 7 in 13 games. They returned a punt once every other game. Zavion Thomas, through 2 games, already has 3 punt returns. He's on pace to very likely triple the amount of punt returns you had. And mind you, teams are trying to kick the ball away from him. They do not want him to return it because he was a freshman All-America punt returner. He is very good at this. By the way, that's something Zavion Thomas is well aware of. Zavion Thomas met with reporters this week, and he was asked about fielding a ball off the bounce, fielding a punt off the bounce, and returning it. Usually, if a ball hits the ground, returners are told, get away from it, get away from it, get away from it, because you never know. It could take a funny bounce, could knock off, you could lose possession. And Zavion Thomas said, nope, they're good with it, including,
especially because Diago, he just
maybe most importantly, Bob Diaco.
Especially because Diago, he just give me the confidence, like, every day we in here, he telling me, like, you're All-American at this. You know more of it than I do, so just go out there and just making a play. Actually, my first punt return ever was versus Georgia as a freshman, and it was off the bounce. So actually, like, getting the ball off the bounce, like, I like it because it give me that extra burst. So, like, I didn't really second guess catching the ball off the bounce versus Nichols.
Does South Carolina elect this weekend to kick to Zavion Thomas? Do they even give him the opportunity to hurt them in the return game? That's a spot now where a year ago, it didn't matter what you got or didn't get. You just needed your special teams not to put you in a disadvantaged situation, not to lose the football. This is a situation with Zavion Thomas where your special teams can help you and help your offense win football games. And now that you're going on the road in conference play, remember, Zavion Thomas was a freshman All-America at Mississippi State. He's been on the road in the SEC. This isn't a new thing to him. He's not stepping up in competition. He's very familiar with this. That's a guy, maybe file that away. Keep in mind this weekend in Columbia to see if Zavion, even in the rain, can't maybe flip the field or give LSU a huge opportunity. Did it against Nichols. He had the 51-yard return after the safety that set up LSU's first touchdown. Maybe he can do it in a conference game as well. We've got a ton of football to talk about. I do want to give you a quick injury update on receiver Chris Hilton, something we reported at LouisianaSports.net on Wednesday. We'll get to that. A really good get for Matt McMahon's basketball program. We'll get to that as we wrap up Locked on LSU. Your team every day. Locked on LSU, proud to tell you about a partnership with LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. So LinkedIn isn't just a job board. It helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, more than 70% of LinkedIn users don't even visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or the resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make that process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, which makes that process even easier and quicker. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. LinkedIn.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. When Brian Kelly was on the SEC Coaches Teleconference on Wednesday, he was asked about injuries. Officially, Chris Hilton Jr. is listed as questionable. Something we did report at LouisianaSports.net on Wednesday is that when LSU practiced, keep in mind with Hurricane Francine. So full disclosure, we've made it almost to the end of this episode, and I am recording this as Hurricane Francine is pummeling Baton Rouge. Thankfully, we have a pole home generator, but still sometimes even with a generator, power flickers. So there's been a handful of times as I've been recording this episode that we have lost power. It's shut down. So I've had to do some post editing here, and I don't know how it's going to look or sound. I'm sure there's going to be some flub, so I apologize for that. But if there are some rough cut edits, that's why. I appreciate you. But this also shows my commitment to you here on Locked on LSU to give you this podcast and this content every single day. So if you are not subscribed, this certainly, I think, earns a subscribe, a smash of the like button, hit the bell so you're notified, subscribe on your favorite podcast app, whatever it may be. There was one other note I wanted to get to, and that was that Matt McMahon has landed the first commitment for his class of 2025. His name is Matt Galul. He's a power forward out of the state of Pennsylvania. He's from William Penn Charter. He's the number 1 player in the state of Pennsylvania. He's the number 14 power forward in the country, and he's a top 100 player overall. In the on-3 composite, he's number 76. On-3 has him ranked as the 62nd best player overall in the country. And LSU beat out a lot of big-time programs for him. Syracuse, Georgia Tech, Vanderbilt, Alabama, Mississippi State, Iowa. There were some big-time programs that wanted Matt Galul. He's a 6'10 power forward, and he was in Baton Rouge on campus this past weekend, actually for the Nichols game. And most programs know a pretty good way to recruit is to bring your athletes in town for a football game and let them experience a football weekend. And one of the things Matt Galul told On3 was that Matt McMahon had been calling him every day, and he loves how Matt McMahon knows how to use big men. So he's not just a back to the basket guy. 6'10". He's a lefty shooter, shot over 50% from the floor in the Nike EYBL circuit, averaged 10 points, 5 boards a game, and a block. So you're talking about a long 6'10" big who not only can play back to the basket, but can stretch the floor as well and can shoot. So Matt McMahon, guy like KJ Jefferson, KJ Jefferson. I got the former Arkansas quarterback on my mind. KJ Williams, football on my mind. KJ Williams, big, the way that KJ Williams played. Think about that here with Matt Galul. So a good get there for Matt McMahon, who's about to enter year 3. Early November, actually the Wednesday before, November the 6th, the Wednesday before LSU plays Alabama is when when the year 3 of the Matt McMahon era will open up with the Tigers playing ULM there at the PMAC. Okay. And as I said that, my internet connection went down. Thank you for being here with us. We are free, available wherever you get podcasts. So please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button. Let a friend know that if they love the Tigers, we got you here every single day, even during a hurricane. It's Locked on LSU, your team every day.